Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Miguel, and this is part of my 29 Days of Magic series. Each day, I interview another amazing Black woman who's doing great work in all various types of industries. And today, I am so happy to have Jovanca Maitland, who is the founder of Jane Events Consulting, and we're going to have a fantastic conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Jovanca,
Hi, Laura.
how are you?
Good. Happy to be here. How are you?
Great. Delightful that I'm your first podcast ever.
Yes, you sure are. I'm glad that this is the first and with you.
See, because it'll be all comfy, no worries. So the way the podcast works is the first question is always the same, and the answer is always hilarious. And I'm sure yours will be no different. So, Jovanca, what was your first job?
My first job, if I go back to my first, it was a camp counselor in my neighborhood. I grew up in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, so I was a youth counselor there for a little bit. Then found my way into retail. Everyone, I guess, at that teen age works in a retail store. So I remember working in a retail store and was like, you know what, I want to buy the clothes that come into the store. How does that work?
Of course.
And I don't even know till this day. My mother's like, how did you say you want to be a buyer? Because after that, I was like, I'm going to be a buyer. Had no idea, but I was like, I'm going to be a buyer. I'm going to buy the clothes that go into the stores. And, I did. Fast forward to the real first job with the money was Saks Fifth Avenue. I started there as a clerical assistant and then worked my way up through their buyers training program. So that was fantastic. And then went to Macy's. So I continued on into retail until exploring the world of events, thanks to Macy's. So I have to credit all my worlds that collided together.
Apparently so. But it's always hilarious. Like, this is the thing about whenever I ask this question is that, like, whatever people did, they sort of name as their first job always correlates to what they're doing right now. And so if I take both of your jobs, camp counselor, which is, dealing with crazy people, and parents and students, and then retail, which, requires herding cats and getting people to have a result. And then buying, because that allows people to, make a decision based on something that they can touch and feel and want to be a part of, to now doing events.
Exactly.
They all correlate.
And they all tied to revenue. Mm-hmm. They all tied to revenue. So that was a quick lesson learned there.
They all do. All right. So you're at Macy's, you're being a buyer, and now you have Jane Events Consulting. So what was the twisty, turny journey that got you to where we are today?
Yeah. So at Macy's, started off again, like I said, in buying, and then just wanted to do something a little more creative. It became a little too mathematical, to the point where I even had to go back to FIT and take retail math classes because the math was so different. So decided, I'm not that math person. I'm more the creative. And that was what was losing it for me in buying. And Macy's was so lovely to have me explore other areas. I met with people in direct marketing. I met with people in publicity and public relations, and then events, and also annual events. Macy's has it split up where the annual events, like the Thanksgiving Day Parade, the flower show, all of that, that's managed by a separate group of folk. And then there's the in-store events, which, having worked at Macy's for over 4 years, I had no idea all those events were even happening in the store because I was so much into the office and what I was doing that I didn't know celebrities were downstairs signing autographs once you bought their product.
You didn't know this? Oh my God.
I had no idea because I was so focused on what I was doing, which was buying. At that time I was in house goods. So like towels, blankets, home furnishings, pillows, all of that fun stuff. And then once I met with those other departments, this woman I'm speaking to is telling me about events for Herald Square, plus events for regional stores. And I'm like, I don't understand. You mean what happens here? So who's been here? And if you know all the brands, they've all been there. Tommy Hilfiger has had, all the celebrities that align to that. So working with like people like NSYNC, Destiny's Child, before they were as big as they are, of course, thereafter. But they all launched at Macy's,
Oh, yes.
Sean Combs, he launched, his line. So he made an appearance, Rockaware, Jay-Z was in the store. There was always something happening that I was like, this is incredible.
You had no idea. That's wild.
Celebrities that were launching fragrances, just every
Mm-hmm.
department. And then let's not even talk about cookware. I worked with so many chefs because once I then got into that world of events, my areas was juniors and cooking and things like that, and bridal. So I did a lot of those type of events before moving on to Herald Square and just managing more of the ready to wear, all the fashion shows and all that crazy stuff that happens. But when you think about it, and I think now to what it ended up leading me to, I've always been around all these celebrities. And from the beginning of their career to seeing it blossom now is just, it's just 360. It's so crazy because I'm still working with some of them. So Essence magazine did an event, at that time, and this is, I want to say 20 years ago or so, all these brands were partnered with magazines, 17 magazine, Allure magazine, just everybody that you can think of would partner with a brand like say Guess or something and bring in X celebrity to do the partnership. So it all fell under my job and some of the other event directors to then kind of manage and put that together. So Essence came and their event ended up being in my area of the store. And I met with them and just kind of helped streamline what they wanted to do and kind of figure it out. But I was so excited that it was Essence Magazine wanting to do a fashion show.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, wow, this is incredible. We haven't had Essence. We've had everybody else. So I was so fortunate that it ended up being in my department because you don't get to always pick and choose. But sometimes you can. We had a cool boss, but sometimes it's like, okay, you can't do all the cool events. you gotta work with that chef. You have a bridal event. You gotta go have a fashion show with the wedding. Oh, okay. But it was nice because it was every day was something else. It was a total mix of everyone that I was working with. And Essence, I just kind of helped them streamline it. And they had a great event. Sales increased in that area for the day. And the woman who was running the marketing called me a few days later and she said, I really like the way you helped us put this together and, would like to talk to you about a job at Essence. And I said, excuse me? At Essence? I went literally into my boss's office and I was like, I'm going to be leaving because Essence just called me and I'm out. And she was like, what?
Wait, what? You for real did that?
But it's so funny because she's so cool. And it's so funny because I still keep in touch with her. Amy Kuehl, oh my God, I love her to death. So I went to her and she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, it's Essence. It's Susan Taylor. You don't understand. It's Mickey Taylor. Everybody's there. And I was like, I met with them and got the offer and was to head up their retail events. They wanted to align more with fashion and retail. And as you know, Black fashion, it was a little bit of a difficulty in getting into the stores, getting programs and events, getting designers in, just all during that time. So because I had an in with retailers and brands, they wanted to be able to use that to kind of melt the two together. And I was all for it. I'm like, Black fashion, what do you want me to do? Who do you want me to call? So we did events at Lord & Taylor. We did events at Saks. I called my old boss. We did an event actually at Saks New Orleans. I'm like, we need to be there during the Essence Festival. That's when you need to come. So we were able to do a lot of great things that kind of made sense, and use those relationships and contacts to just bring all of that stuff together, making sure we had events happening at the right time, down to like the Magic Festival, Magic Trade Show
Mm-hmm.
That happens in August in Las Vegas. I'm like, we have to have a presence there. We have to have a presence at CFDA. We have to be there for 7th on 6. So it was, again, just using relationships that I had to try to call people and see how we could, even if it's just to have magazines in the lobby of, the fashion, the tents itself. Even if it's to have, branding, like we aligned all this beautiful Black fashion imagery along the bus route in Magic, all the kiosks. I still can picture it, and it's giving me chills because you never see that. And the fashion director at that time was so amazing, and probably just ahead of her time for where we were too, but just beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, ended up at Essence, stayed there for a while, did any and everything in that department, and worked with so many amazing editors and partners and the people that were there. And that's why I think I stayed so long. And that's the testament to what Essence does, is everybody becomes family. And they're not kidding when they say you're family. Like, I bought my first house while I was working there. I got married. I had my children. You know what I mean? So, and everybody's involved in that. Everybody's involved. So it really was a great, great time. And then, enter COVID 2020, the pandemic hit, and a lot of people had to, be furloughed, I included. But I had always thought before then about what I wanted to do next, because I felt like I've already hit this pinnacle. And I'm always thinking about what's next, what's next. I just can't sit still. What's next for me to do? And a good friend of mine helped me come up with Jane, which actually is my name and my 2 boys' names together. So Jovanca, Andre, and Evan. Because she said, you just need something quick and easy so people can remember. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. And I just started writing, and I put our names together to kind of think about it, because I just wanted it to be meaningful. And it's also simple. And you always hear, plain Jane, but it's this beauty of Jane. And I thought about what I do and how I'm given all these different puzzle pieces, and some are crazy and some are fine and all of that. But at the end of the day, I have to put it together and make it beautiful. So the mascot, if you will, or the brand imaging is this butterfly, because that caterpillar is so ugly, you know what I mean, before it gets to be this beautiful thing. So, I'm here to just transform whatever it is you're thinking about. And I use my resources, and I just kind of piece it together. So you can hire me for just a piece of the project, or if you want me to run the whole thing. But I'm there to just kind of assist. If you already have a production company, I don't come in to take any business from anyone. I'm like, okay, well, I can support you by managing that production company for you. And I can see what elements you may be missing and fill in the blanks. So that's how Jane is kind of niche in that way, where I don't go in and say, let me produce your whole event. I also don't have time. So I don't have time. And I don't want to do that. I don't have a production company. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that. But I know who to call. Like
Exactly.
you know what I mean, Laura? You know who to call. Need something?
Exactly.
Call. So
I know exactly who to call.
Exactly. So that's where I am now, and I'm just loving it.
No, I love the story of like how you got here, because it's just, it's funny. Like I remember that we got connected through Deidre,
Yes.
and then because she's like, Jovanca, and I'm like, no.
Exactly.
and she's like, I'm like, no, I know all the Black women who are in producers. I don't know Jovanca. And she's like, you need to know. And then I'm immediately talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, you need to come join the family.
I know,
And
isn't that crazy? I was like, wait, I don't know Laura. Who is she? And Deidre's like, yeah, wait a minute, y'all have to meet. And I just was like, yes, we are connected, and I love it. And I thank you too for just kind of always thinking of me for anything. You know who to call.
I know. Listen, I know who to call. It's just part of the game here, and how it all works. But I think it's also a lovely, beautiful testament to, like, you never know when your name is being spoken in different rooms.
Oh, absolutely. You're right.
And by whom. And I think, that's part of why I love doing this series, is because, like, I want people to see that like the journey is never straight, but like the relationships are what matter, and the people that you meet along the way matter so much. And trying to do right as best you possibly can along the way is the key to getting where you want to get to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I haven't seen Deidre in a long time, and for her to reach out and just speak your name, and then it just is, it's a trickle effect, but it's beautiful. Even now, when I met you, and then you're like, wait, Arlene, and I'm like, wait, I know Arlene, and it's just so great that everyone, like you said, can speak to the relationship and can speak highly of you in rooms that you may not even know that you're being talked about.
Exactly. Uh, so I'm sure along the way in building your career, you had some challenging moments. And I'd love for you to share, an experience whereby like you're like, there's no way I'm getting through this, and then you did.
Let me pick which one, because there are quite a few, to be honest. Yeah, there's been quite a few. You think you know, and so you don't know. Even just earlier, I'll start with one that is earlier in my career, just starting into events, and it was in retail. And, I had to do a fashion show, and I know how to set up a fashion show. I mean, it's a T stage, it's this, it's that, I got it. So I just knew I knew what I was doing. And it was in a large store that heavily produced business in that area of the store. So all eyes were on it. And I set it up, and my director at that time came in just to pop in and make sure I was okay. Lisa Walker, I love her to death too. And she said, this isn't right. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I was definitely like sure of myself. And she's like, no, she's like, your stage is here. She's like, so tell me, where do the models go? And I said, no, they'll be right here. But where do they change? They can just change here. But she was like, but the fitting room is so far away from where they have to go. So they need to walk through the whole crowd to run back and change. How many changes? How many looks are you doing? Well, she was like, and where are you setting up? She named everything that was set in the way I thought it should be, because I thought it looked cute. When I had to tell the production people that they needed to move the stage and switch everything around, I thought they were going to cut my heads off. I was more scared of them than her because they were nailing and hammering all day, all day.
Oh no! So you basically have to rebuild the stage. Oh dear.
The stage. But what it taught me was that you never too big to be grounded. You know what I mean? Like, she came in and she was definitely a force. She was strong about it. And I felt like, okay, she's just being a such and such. And, in your head, you're like thinking all these things. And
right.
I was like, well, she don't know what she's talking about. She was like, but everything she said was so right. When it got switched around and I looked at it, I was like, oh my God. Okay. I would have had a disaster if she didn't pop up to say that this was wrong. So sometimes when these people come in and they recorrect what you thought is right, it's for a reason, and it makes sense. So you have to kind of humble yourself to just be like, you know what, I'm gonna listen to this, because I could have been like combative with her.
Right.
It wouldn't have served me no purpose. But at the time, I was young and just starting out. I was like, I got this.
I know everything. What are you talking about? Right.
Exactly. I definitely had that chip. Like, I know what I'm doing. I always do fashion shows. I came from fashion. I came from Fifth Avenue.
Like, you gotta try and tell me, girl, please.
I definitely had an attitude, but that was definitely, it stays in my head. Like, I can totally picture how wrong it was. Oh, totally. So that was one of my early ons. And then more earlier, or more later, I should say, at Essence, a big fashion program that it was actually the first big fashion program, a fashion house during Fashion Week. And we just had such little time to put it together, and everything was changing and everyone had different opinions. And, I thought it was going one way and it wasn't going that way. And we literally had to do so much revision and switch over that I just had to humble myself to make it happen. call on the fashion and beauty director to help, and she called her people, and we needed models, and we needed to find a quick designer because there was so many things that, the higher up vision, the leadership's vision, we're presenting one thing and they're like, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And we're like, no, we don't have that. No, the venue can't do that. No, oh, we should just have a dinner. No, we can't do a dinner. No, we can't do. Oh, we don't have time to order awards. You know what I mean? So all of these things were coming at us, and at the end of the day, these people are in charge. So no matter what you think and what you say, you always find a way to make it work. There are, of course, some things that you can push back on that definitely don't make sense or will really inflate the budget. But as you know, leadership and all other stakeholders are looking to you to make it happen. They don't really care how you made it happen. They just want you to make it happen.
Exactly.
They don't care that you
Just
haven't slept. You haven't slept in days or weeks. And, it's like the event is tomorrow and now you told me today. And now I got to call somebody and it's midnight. No one is concerned with that. But, the curse and the blessing is that you always make it work. You always find a way. So they figure out, well, I don't know what she's complaining about. She'll make it happen. And you make it happen. Oh. You make it happen.
That is the one very masochistic part of being an event producer.
Yes.
Because we're really, really good at that. Like I just had this happen yesterday where the client wanted to change these videos. And they sent an email at 3 a.m. my time, telling me to like redo one video and I'll make a whole new other video. Oh, and we need it by the end of the day today, Pacific time. And I'm like, what? So I like, so one, I made this happen.
Exactly. You make it happen.
I spent the whole morning like trying to find people who could do it for not an obscene amount of money, because also like these things aren't free. But like was trying, and was able obviously to find some folks who could do it, and they got on the phone and just like knocked it out. But it was one of those like pulling a rabbit out of the hat where it's like, oh,
exactly. But we do it so often that it becomes, kind of like you said, this little, psycho pattern. What do they say? That's the definition of crazy. You know what I mean? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting something different, something like that.
Yes.
But, a definition of insanity, I believe it was. And, again, though, going back to relationships, if I didn't have great relationships within Essence, to even just have the internal folks, for me to call the editor, the beauty director and say, I need your help. Like, I need help, and I'm, no one to say, like, I'm the quick first to say I need help. You can ask anybody. I'm like, I need help. I don't know. I need help. But it's help with the experts. You know what I mean? Not just any old help, because that could be dangerous too. But it's getting the help from the experts. And I just knew who to call. And relationship wise, they made it happen through their relationships. You know what I mean? She was able to call designers and call this person and call that and call a hairstylist and all these things that we needed, because the direction had changed. And it actually ended up being so amazing. And I think Essence has done it 2 or 3 more times since then, but I did the first one. And it's been amazing. And I'm glad to see it still riding out. You know what I mean? That's a testament to what it was, well, what it is.
Oh yeah, it's a testament. It's also, I think it's also a testament to Black women always doing the most and moving heaven and earth, because it's in our DNA. Like, I do believe that like making it happen and moving heaven and earth is like a passed down from generation trait that we just happen to have. Because I'll always remember one time I was studying a sort of clarification, and there was a question about like who to pick for the winner, and some of the folks were like, well, how about this person, and I was like, okay, all things being equal, we're gonna go, my vote is for this one Black woman. And for any number of reasons, they're like, well, why? And I'm like, because what she does and how she does it and what the research she's had and the success she's had proves that like she will supercharge whatever you do if she wins this.
Mm-hmm.
And because we just know how to move heaven and earth in a whole other way. And once we're given the opportunities, like just watch us soar.
Exactly. Oh my God. Exactly.
So, them's the rules.
Yeah. I mean, we make it happen. And, we're also so passionate about what we're doing. And specifically at Essence, we knew who we were doing it for. So it's like, oh man, we can't let anything fail. This is for us. Like we're part of that. We're Black women too. So, I always put myself in the situation of when I come to this event, what would I like to experience? What would I like to see? Because I am Essence. You're talking to me too. So I definitely take that with me, which of course is now another burden that I've put on myself to take on, because like you said, doing the most, I'm like, I'm going to take this whole thing and put it on my shoulders.
Exactly. Like, hey, here's a mountain. I'll put on my back. And you got another mountain? Throw it on my back too. It's all good. And we do have to realize it's not the ideal. Like we have to rest. We have to say no. And because if we don't, there'll be a 6 mountain on our back before we even get any further. Speaking of which, what do you, my friend, do for your self-care?
It probably, I will say, is most recently that I've been looking into, taking that pause. And again, I think being furloughed had a lot to do with it. I've always had, thoughts of what I would do and Jane and all of that, but it's now that I have the opportunity to be independent and take on projects that I want and don't want and say yes, no, like you're saying, I've made that a part of the self-care. Projects that I take on, they need to fulfill me in a way that doesn't, drain me. And I don't have to do it. I don't have to do it because it's for a particular client or because the client wants it this way versus I don't think it should be that way. I don't need to take on that extra stress. So I really am conscious of what I assign myself to, and just taking that pause. Recently I even just started listening a little bit more to podcasts that kind of have that motivation to start your day. Which before, I always had time to listen to podcasts, but I didn't really make time. It's like, oh, I can't listen to this. I can't do this. I can't do, but listening to conversations like ours, listening to, motivation, listening to, how I built this or, any of those things are all inspirational. And I take the time out now to really sit and just listen and think about how I am kind of leading my own life and my own journey. Even just the basics of just taking a walk. I make sure I take a pause, I'm working from home. So I make sure I take a pause to go outside and walk. Even if it's cold, I have to go outside. Even if I just walk around, even if I just walk around the block, I feel like I did something, you know what I mean? To get a little fresh air. Cause you need to get out of your own head and your own space, So some of that I've started to incorporate a lot more into what I'm doing. And again, like you said, the saying no, like if I don't want to do something, I don't have to do it. I don't want to do it. And that's it. I don't owe you an explanation. I don't have to over explain why. I just don't want to do it. Okay, bye. So that's part of it.
Because I don't. Yeah.
That's part of it. Yeah, and it's nothing personal. You know what I mean? No. It's just I just have to think about my time, myself, and how it's gonna serve me as well as the client and whoever else is involved.
Yeah, and you take the emotion out of it. This is nothing personal. It's just a no. And and no is a sentence.
No is a sentence. Oh my God, no is a sentence. But we feel like we have to say more. Like once we say no, we feel like we have to give a whole life story of the no.
Nope.
Now I'm just like, no. Sometimes I say nah.
Nah. No, ma'am.
Just to make it seem different. Let's make it seem a little different, but nah.
We give you. What we're not going to do is that. There you go.
Not gonna do that.
Not going to do
Also
it.
a complete sentence.
Exactly.
I love it.
And that's the way. And that's the way it should be.
Exactly.
That's because when you say no, you're choosing you, and that's what you're supposed to do. Like, bottom line.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
And
think
you know, it takes
especially
time. Yep.
it takes years. I think, and I think it's
Hmm.
really important for us to, like, again, show this now for our younger generation, so they learn this early on. That
Yes.
you can make choices. You can choose yourself. There's no
Exactly.
shame in choosing yourself. And I think that sometimes there's a little bit of stigma around that. So the more that we can do is show, like, no, choose yourself. It's okay.
Exactly.
The better off we'll all be, and we'll have a healthier nation if we do that.
We have to, and just even asking for help. Like I just know so many people that are independent that do everything by themselves. And I'm like, you really don't have to. And, and again, like you said, it takes years and it takes time to get to that point because you feel like you have to be, over everything. And that's the only way it's going to get done right. But, a little bit of that has to be, you have to trust. You have to let go and trust. I've had to do it on several events where I'm like, I'm so used to doing everything and being involved that finally I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to trust what you said. And it always works out. It really
Yeah,
always works out.
it really does. I think it's hard to let go, but I think once you let go and you kind of let flow, as they say, the better off you end up being. So I know
Exactly.
I 1000% agree with you. Now, last question for you: do you have a give and an ask of the audience,
A give and an ask.
or an ask? It can either or both.
Okay. Um, let's see. Give. I'd like to give peace. It's along the lines of that self-care and along the lines of taking on so much. My girlfriend and I always talk about, peace and just kind of like needing that space wherever it is. So definitely peace. I wish everyone peace in their homes, in their hearts, or wherever they need it, you know.
Aw, that's
And
beautiful.
then and then ask, um, hmm, ask the audience. I don't know. I don't know what I would ask. I guess it can go back to asking for help, just thinking about our conversation and just, if you need someone to even just look over something that you've done, I never thought to ask help in that way. More so help I've always asked for in like, okay, can you just take this part of the project? Okay, run with it. But ask in terms of, what do you think of this? Or what is your opinion on this? And, that took a while for me to do as well, too. And I would run meetings, asking people's opinions and, just kind of taking into account what everyone is saying. You may not use all of it, and that's fine, too. But just asking. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to feel a part of something. So just asking people for their thoughts and opinions and how can you be better? It doesn't help to ask for that. So that's my
Awesome.
ask.
I think that's brilliant. Well, Jovanca, it's been such a delight talking with you. It always is just so refreshing and calming and chat with you. Thank you so much for being part of
Yeah.
29 Days of Magic. And we'll put your details in the show notes so folks can find you online and hire you because you're the
Great.
bomb.com.
Yes,
You
yes,
do
yes.
beautiful. She does beautiful work. One of our favorite collaborators at DF, and just a delight to have. And so,
Thank
thank you so much.
you. Thank you, Laura. You're a total inspiration. I've learned so much from you and the time that we've worked together and look forward to more and meeting some of these folks that are listening as well too. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Such a delight. Just a delight. And that is our show.